Great. Now, one thing that really set Flash apart from other multimedia platforms was the concept that they took from animation, which is tweening. And in animation, a tween goes from it's the in between movement from one main image or graphic to another main image or graphic, meaning that on keyframe 1, I have my molecule here. On keyframe 20, I have my molecule down on the bottom right. Now what I want to do is put in all in the frames between those two a movement that goes from the top down to the bottom. Well, that effect, the movement from one keyframe to another, is called a motion tween. And we can insert one of those. You click on the frame and you say insert, create motion tween. Then I go to the next keyframe and I say insert, create motion tween. The next, insert, create motion tween. The next keyframe, insert, create motion tween. And on that last one, I'll create a motion tween as well. Create motion tween. Now notice when I created those tweens, I get an arrow that notifies me that I'm actually creating this motion tween from this keyframe to the next keyframe, and the keyframes you can recognize by those black dots. Let's look at the effect here. I can put my playhead on the timeline and click return, and it'll show me quickly what's going on in the timeline. Another way to do it is to go to Control, and I go down to Test Movie, and it opens up a window, and it shows me my movie playing sort of in its native format. Now I don't like to have it full screen. I have sort of a small movie. So what I'm going to do is click on this minimize up here, restore down, and it kind of shrinks it down to its native size. That gives me more of an idea of what I'm really working with. Now when I test a movie, what it does is it creates a loop, so you'll notice that it, as the movie stops, then it starts to play again. So as this molecule bounces up to the top right, the movie starts again. So that's the first step in our Flash game, is to create this hydrogen molecule that moves across the stage from corner to corner. When I'm done previewing this, I can click the close, and it brings my stage back. Now I can hit this and maximize it back to full. This is a good point to click File, Save As. Now for me, the way I like to do this is to create a folder where I'm going to be storing my game, and I created one on my desktop called Flash Water Game. I'm going to click inside there. It's an empty folder, and I'm going to name this file Flash Water Game and click Save. Now the Flash file type is FLA, Flash document. So this will be flashwatergame.fla. FLAs don't actually play themselves. We'll have to publish that out for later use on the web, but we'll get to that in a bit. Click Save, and we've saved our work. Now if you remember, where we are right now is, you can always recall where in our game we are. Scene 1, which is our main game space or stage, and then we clicked in a little instance called hydrogen that was on the stage. So if I click back to scene 1, now we see, okay, I have this very first layer, it's called hydrogen, and in this one frame right here is this movie clip. And if I click in this in the instance of this movie clip, that's where we set up our whole tween situation, which actually moves over the course of 80 frames. So this is a little bit closer to 7 seconds or so. And when I jump back to the scene, Notice that all we see is that 7 seconds is represented as happening in this single frame. So it's a little different than our traditional concept of a linear timeline. As we build this out, this will start to make a little more sense. For the next step, let's add a new layer to our timeline. And you do that by clicking on this button here, plus, and I get this layer 2. This is the one I'm going to call hydroxide. Now, you recall that when we were initially creating our hydrogen movie clip, we made a duplicate of it, and we called it hydroxide. And it's right over here in our library. Let's do a little editing on that hydroxide movie clip. So I go over here to the library, I'll click on that movie clip. And what we have here is the copy of the hydrogen molecule. Now, hydroxide is not just a single hydrogen molecule, it is one oxygen and one hydrogen molecule. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to add one layer here. This layer 1 has the blue circle, which I'll call hydrogen. If I click plus, this will be oxygen. I'm going to actually grab onto this layer and pull it underneath because I want the hydrogen to be on top. I'm going to make my oxygen molecule red, so I'll grab a fill color that maybe is red, and a stroke color, which is that outline, a little bit darker red. And I'm going to grab my oval tool, and I'll make this circle about that size. Now I want to do some moving around. I'm going to click on my I want to select my whole hydrogen molecule. This is my arrow tool here. If I just click in this frame, it selects everything in that frame, which is that blue circle. It's hydrogen. I'm just going to scoot it over. Notice that once it's selected, you can also use your arrow keys for fine movement, just one pixel at a time. I'm going to choose oxygen, and I'm also going to move that. Notice that this little crosshair is sort of the very top left, so you can kind of judge how your movie clip's going to interact with other movie clips by thinking of this as the top left of your your symbol. You click hydrogen again, and sort of put this up here at the top, right, something like that. And this represents my hydroxide molecule, oxygen and hydrogen. So I'm done editing this. Notice that this movie clip is hydroxide, and this is the one that we selected over here from the library. It actually isn't on our scene stage yet. If I go back to scene 1, notice that I have not put that onto my stage. But I do want to do that now, so I'm going to click on the frame in the layer that I created called hydroxide, and I'm going to click the hydroxide movie clip over here, and I'm just going to drag it out and basically set this right up in the center. The effect that I'm going for is this hydrogen molecule is moving from corner to corner. And I would like at some point for this hydrogen to interact with this hydroxide so that we have not only one hydrogen molecule but two hydrogen molecules, so we have two H's and one O. So it goes from being hydroxide and hydrogen to being H2O, which would be water. So let's take a look. We have our movie clip here that does the tweening animation. We now have this symbol here, and it just stays still on the stage. And if I go to Control and I test my movie, now notice what's happening is my blue molecule is going underneath my hydroxide, and that's not what I want it to do. I'm going to close this here by clicking this close. I want my hydrogen to be on top, so what I'm going to do is grab my hydrogen and just pull it right on top. And now when I go to control test movie, let's see what we get. There, now it's on top. Great. Remember, I can shrink here. And that's a little more of the representation of the real size of the game. Okay. Blow this back up, maximize. I'm going to click File and Save. So what I have now is this molecule bouncing around the corners of the game space. We've got this hydroxide here, and when they do overlap, what we've created is this H2O molecule. Now, let's create a little bit of interface to the game. Right now, all we get is this animation where these two symbols overlap. By interface, I think a simple way to start is just to create a start and a stop button. So let's look at the next kind of symbol that you can create, and those are buttons. I go to Insert, and I insert a new symbol. And this time, instead of a movie clip, I'm going to choose button. And I'm going to call this Start. I'm going to click OK. And notice that over here in the library, I've got this Start button created. And it takes me straight to the stage for that Start button. I can see Scene 1, Start. With a button, you have 4 options. The first is what the button looks like when it's up. Then you can have a different look for when the mouse is over the top of the button, when the mouse is pushed down, and when the mouse is hit or let go. Now, we're only going to use 2 of these features. Let me show you how we're going to do it. A simple way is to, let's see, we'll start with the first layer. And I'm going to grab a simple gray, and we'll make the outline sort of a darker gray. And I'm going to click my rectangle tool, and I'll just draw out sort of a nice rectangle. And I get that gray on the inside with the darker gray stroke. Now this is what I'm going to see when I am up, but if I go to over, or actually I have to insert, what I need to do is click hit, and now I'm going to insert a frame, and what that does is it enables now this background square to be visible in all states. I'm going to create a new layer, layer number 2, and I'm going to insert a keyframe. Actually, no, there's already a keyframe inserted, and it's a empty dot, which just means there's nothing in there. So I'm going to start with that. Go to the text tool, and if I look down here at the bottom, I have all of these options for my text. The color, I'm going to choose something like a dark red. And I have my font type, which I can choose from a drop-down menu. Font size. But let's start by putting some text in here. Click. And I'm going to click Start. That looks just a little too big, so I'm going to select it, and from my drop-down menu, maybe take this down to about 35. And see if that fits. Now notice I have this blue area which shows me that it's selected. It's right here on layer number 2, and what I can do is sort of move it down a little bit, and I'm going to put it right inside of my button, Start.